Ever feel like you're swimming in togetherness? You know, that feeling when you're like, hey, relationship, a
Ugh.
little space, please.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We long for connection, right? But then too much of it, uh-oh. Like, we're gonna suffocate.
Total recipe for disaster. So we're diving deep into togetherness today.
Yeah.
Like, what does it even mean, and how much is too much?
It's a balancing act, for sure. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what makes relationships so fascinating, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we dissect the downsides, let's define it. What makes togetherness healthy in the first place?
Well, a lot of the research we dug into, it kept coming back to shared experiences, and that's not just like being physically present, right?
Right.
It's more about like making memories together. You're laughing together, supporting each other's dreams.
Yeah, building a we without losing the me.
Exactly. That's the key right there.
Which brings us to those downsides. And
Right.
I feel like there's this misconception that it's just about like getting on each other's nerves, being around each other too much.
Mm-hmm.
But it's deeper than that, right?
Way deeper. We found this one study that really hit the nail on the head. They called it the overlapping circles phenomenon. So picture this. A healthy relationship, you've got two individuals, each with their own passions, friends, you name it.
Right, like two separate circles.
Exactly. Now, where those circles overlap, that's your togetherness zone. That's the good stuff. But when one circle starts to consume the other,
Oh, trouble in paradise.
big time, you get this feeling of suffocation, right? Losing your own identity. And honestly, it can actually lead to more conflict.
Makes sense. You're both just like existing in this pressure cooker with no outlet.
Exactly. Think about it. When you never have that space to recharge, pursue your own interests. Resentment builds up so fast, and that can poison even the strongest bond.
Oh, absolutely. There was actually this anecdote in one of the articles. This woman was saying, half joking, that she fell back in love with her husband after he went on a business trip for a week. They both needed that time apart to appreciate each other again.
It's so true. And it's not about being selfish or wanting to escape the relationship, right? It's just acknowledging that a little bit of healthy individuality actually strengthens things. When you have your own passions, your own experiences to share, you bring so much more to the table.
So how do we find that sweet spot? How can our listeners, take a step back and be like, okay, do we need a little more me time in this relationship? What are some signs?
So, one thing that came up a lot was this idea of scheduled separateness, which sounds way more intense than it actually is.
Right. It's not like you're setting up a spreadsheet, color coding your alone time.
No, not at all. It's more about being mindful and just carving out time for individual pursuits, whatever those may be.
Right. Maybe it's a weekly art class or even just like an hour in the evening to read a book without distraction. Just for you.
Exactly. The point is, you're being proactive about it, not waiting till you're at each other's throats to realize, oh, I need some space.
Because we've all been there.
Mm.
That moment you realize you haven't had a thought that didn't involve your partner in days. Yeah, that's a red flag.
Huge red flag. And, communication is key here, too. Like, actually talking to your partner about your individual needs and encouraging them to do the same.
So important.
Because this isn't about loving each other less, right?
Yeah.
It's about creating a dynamic where both people can thrive, both together and as individuals.
It all comes back to those overlapping circles, right? Making sure they're balanced. So for everyone listening, maybe take a moment today to think about your own circles. How are they looking? It's a small step, but it can make a world of difference.
Couldn't agree more.
See you next time for another deep dive.